Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with James Wallace, who is much better known as Colored Clocks. He has just shared his newest album titled The Floral Emblem, and I am honestly beyond excited to talk to him all about it. James, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
Hey Austin, yeah, going good. Had a big day, I guess, but just relaxing into the evening now, I suppose.
Nice. Well, no better time to talk about your music and how fantastic it is. I want to hop right into it, and I think for any first time listener, they may be not necessarily confused is the word, but like overwhelmed by the amount of sound going on here. So
Okay.
what I want to focus on to begin with is really what it's all about. I want to talk about the lyrics and if there is sort of an overarching message that you're trying to pass off on the record completely.
Yeah, okay. I think there's no like intentional theme, I would say, that I sort of strive to make clear or anything like that. It's not really a story in my opinion. It's more just like I get these ideas or songs.
Hmm.
Um, Normally I get like a lyric and a melody together, and I flesh out each song individually. And I think they're sort of connected naturally in a sense, but I don't try to sort of, put forth a message or anything like that. It's more kind of how the song feels, how I feel when I make it, what I think makes for a good lyric in a certain position, I suppose. But
Sure.
there's no
Well,
conscious effort to.
Well, what comes first for you? Is it the lyrics that start the song, or is it kind of playing around on your instruments and then adding in the lyrics and afterwards?
I think it does vary, but typically these days, I think it's more commonly sort of a melody with a lyric, like a little kind of phrase or like
Sure.
small group of phrases that come as a little kind of like together, like at once, typically like a little melody and a lyric. And then I will might record it on my phone. Often I'm not near my instrument. I'll just record it on my phone
Yeah.
sometime.
That's when the inspiration hits is when you're never near the instrument.
Yeah. Just as long as I've got my phone on me, sometimes the battery runs a bit flat, but yeah. And then I sort of, when I get to a computer at some time in the future, not necessarily very soon afterwards, but at some point I'll sort of figure out what the melody was, figure out the chords should be beneath it, and I sort of take it from there. That's not always how it happens, but like I think that's recently at least that's the most common way it
Nice.
goes.
I guess it does change on occasion.
Of
But I
course,
do
yeah.
want to talk about the production side of things because, like always, you're a seasoned veteran in the music making game at this point. So I want to know, how does the production work for you? Do you ever get any outside help on, finishing up your records, or is it solely you putting it all together in the end?
It is just me. I do get some friends. I don't get too many people really even listening to it before I finish it. Like, not necessarily on purpose. It's just the way it just seems to go. I live in Germany, so I don't have too many friends here that are that musical at the moment.
Mhm.
Most of my friends will be at home in Melbourne.
Gotcha.
Um, and my parents, so I give it to my parents, and they give me a bit of a very honest sort of opinion of it, which is good. We have slightly different musical tastes on certain things, but there is quite a lot of overlap as well, I
Sure,
guess.
sure.
Sometimes, and just a couple of close friends from home who are also like I played music with when I was a bit younger, or whatever, that I really respect, and I send them some stuff, and they give me some feelings, and that's pretty much it. But I tend to like just work on it myself, and I kind of, unless I'm happy with it, I guess I don't ever feel happy with it. Let's say.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. I can only assume that making music by yourself can get a little bit lonely at times, and that you do need that outside perspective because if you're just listening to the same songs over and over and over, it's
Yeah,
I feel like it's difficult to sort of better yourself and get that outside thought on what could be changed and
totally. Yeah. I think every time I make something, I end up chasing my tail at some point in the process. Do you know what I mean?
sure,
You think you're bettering something, but you end up kind of making it worse a
that
bit and
makes
better a
sense.
bit. Sometimes it's a bit of a long-winded thing, but that's just the way it goes, I suppose.
Very reasonable.
Yeah.
So, considering that this is your sixth album, correct?
No, I've actually got quite a lot that I haven't really uploaded at the moment. So on Spotify, I think there's six, but I
Yeah.
think I think I've finished nine. I think
Jeez.
like I've had them online before and I've taken them down. And like I'm keen to like just tune up some of the mixes because I did some of them with I don't have that much equipment, but like I've got a few better things at the moment that I can actually listen to it better on and probably
Okay.
make a slightly better mix for. And yeah, so I've got a few more
No,
than
no, no.
what.
That makes this question even better, considering that you have more than I thought in the first place. Okay, so considering this is about your ninth album, I want to know, how do you continue to find inspiration and to try to create new things and new sounds and new messages? I feel like, I mean, nine albums. Some bands don't even hit two albums, and look at you. So how do you continue to try for more?
I think the idea of being alone, I guess, in the project allows me to kind of do it whenever I want to, I suppose. And I find it to be, I think if I don't do it, I feel like there's been obviously definitely times where I've paused or stopped for, up to like
Yeah,
6 months or so or whatever. But I always feel like there's something, I obviously like really like music. And for me, it's just like always sort of occurs. And once I get an idea, I feel this urge to finish it. So like I don't necessarily search for inspiration or seek to do it. It just kind of happens. And when it happens, like I'm happy about it. Like I don't, it's a good thing, I guess, for my mind. And
that's
I,
fair.
yeah, but then I try to like flesh it out. Like I said, not straight away. Like sometimes I've got these ideas that are like years old on my phone or whatever.
Sure.
I just don't bother to fix up or whatever. But I just, yeah, I just find some time sometimes and sit there. And once I get a good idea going and it gets a bit of momentum, then I get excited about it sometimes. And that's when it starts coming together.
Oh, that
Over.
makes sense. I guess it's better to be too motivated than, not creative enough and you can't, and you want to work on it, but nothing's coming. I think you're in a good position at this point.
Yeah, it sort of it occurs naturally. I think I don't really ever sit down with the aim of writing something. That's not really, I
Sure.
guess, how I tend to work.
That seems normal, though.
Yeah, it probably is. I think
Yeah.
if I try to sit down and make something from nothing, like I have done that and it has been okay, but I don't
Right.
think I would normally enjoy that, or you'd probably hear it in the song as well, perhaps.
I understand. So, I mean, for the most part, your music is fairly psychedelic. Like, that's the base of it.
Mhm.
I want to know, are you going to potentially experiment in the future and try something new, or do you think that you found your base and you're just kind of trying to try new avenues based off of that?
Um, I guess that's hard to sort of say what I'll do. Like I do like things. There's like a psychedelic sort of thread that runs through it all. I wouldn't
Sure.
necessarily say every single song is psychedelic, or I just think there's like, I guess some of the way I mix it or produce it maybe gives it a
Yeah.
bit more of that kind of feeling. I think there are certain elements of a song that I do strive to have. I kind of like a bit of a like an atmosphere or a feeling, or like I guess the emotion is obviously the most important
Right.
thing, but like I think there's a sort of it's hard to describe, but
Right. I think to the untrained musical ear who has like this blanket definition of psychedelic, that's what they would call it. But
yeah,
listen, your genre of music is the music that I listen to in my normal times, and I think that you know that. Obviously,
right,
there's so much music that comes through, and yeah, sometimes it's country or sometimes it's R&B, but through and through, I'm a psychedelic rock fan to the bone.
right, yeah,
So obviously, there's so much different little experimentations and different subgenres that fall under it. But
mm,
yeah, to the listener that has not listened, I think that it's pretty safe to say that that's what they would consider it to be.
yeah. I don't disagree. And I think like I don't necessarily plan on abandoning any particular thing I do, but just like I guess extending things and things I sort of enjoy, I might go down those paths a bit further.
Yeah,
Recently, like, well, I've always really liked this era of Van Morrison. I'm not sure if you're a big Van Morrison fan. He's not
yeah, yeah,
particularly
yeah.
psychedelic, or at least not really
No,
known
no,
for it.
no. But
But
classic.
yeah, but there's this era that people tend not to really associate him with. But in his career in the sort of mid '80s, or from just all of the '80s, really, in his career, I find that at the moment to be really sort of inspiring, really kind of ambient. I
Mhm.
kind of call it psychedelic in a way, not in this obvious cliche way, but in its own sort of way,
Sure,
kind of
sure.
spiritual almost, or like soulful. It's sort of hard to describe, but that's really sort of inspiring, I suppose, at the moment. But there's a few other things as well that I, instead of conflicting with that idea too, that I'm listening to. So
Of course.
yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's all right. So normally I ask people, who are their musical inspirations, but I think I have a pretty good hold on who you listen to. So
Mm,
what I really want to know is, for someone that has made so much music, for someone that has clearly been doing this a little while, Was there a specific artist or even a specific album that resonated with you so much that it kind of convinced you to start making music? Or was it a slow kind of transition to doing that?
Yeah, I think that's yeah. I said answer that in a few ways perhaps. But when I was really young, I used to make. I always liked music when I was a kid. Like from quite a young age, I was really kind of like affected by it quite strongly. I think I really liked Queen when I was a kid. I was like,
Yeah.
obsessed with Queen, and I used to like record music onto like I couldn't even play an instrument. I used to like get chopsticks and whack them on the couch,
That's how we all start.
thing with like
Yeah.
this tape recorder, and like make these little albums and stuff. It was ridiculous.
Mhm.
And but then like I always made then I learned how to play piano a bit and guitar a bit and stuff, and I started making things a bit more musical. And
Right,
then
right.
so I always did it as a kid, and I made some albums in high school with a friend of mine, which I sometimes actually in some Color Clock songs are taken from those things that I made when I was like 14 or whatever.
Cool.
But the thing that probably inspired me to sort of pursue it a bit more strongly was In a Speaker by Tame Impala, as everyone kind of sort of, Tame Impala is obviously a huge band now, but and
Yep.
they were big then as well, but they're obviously Australian, and I think like when that album came out and I kind of realized it was Kevin Parker almost entirely, I think that kind of made me realize that not that I'm comparing myself to Tame Impala, but like
Oh, I didn't
that
think you were at
yeah,
all.
no, no. But
Although the
it's possible.
similarities are there, the Australian, the solo,
Well, exactly.
the
It kind of
yeah,
made me realize that like, someone doing stuff by themselves can get to that level. And I could sort of see
sure.
some sort of level of similarity in at least in taste and in kind of like maybe ambition or whatever it might be. I could
It
sort of
has to be an ambition thing because I think when people listen to Tame Impala for the first time and they have no knowledge of the music in the slightest,
right.
any normal person would automatically assume that it's a full band going through the
Yeah.
normal process of, going in the studio and laying down drums and this and that. But once they learn that it's one person and it's just like you, it's one person doing it, it
Yeah.
becomes a million times more impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think the first time I heard like Desire Be Desire Go, was the first one I heard. I was in the car coming home from uni, and I thought it was like I really like the Beatles as well. Like, all
Yeah.
those things back then I really like. And like I know like the whole Beatles catalog, let's say, and I'm in the car and I literally thought I was like, oh, is this like they found an old Beatles song or something like this?
Right. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
back then especially, I think like I guess Kevin Park had a bit of a John Lennon-ness to his voice
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And
That
I'd
comparison's
never heard
correct.
anything like it. And it's the only thing I could compare it to. And then they'd said who it was after the song finished. And from then on, I was like always drawn to them. And they obviously developed so much since then as well. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Not the same music it used to be, but that's okay. Everyone evolves at some point.
of course. Yeah, yeah. Like I still think, they're amazing.
Oh, I agree. I saw them last week. It's fantastic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
they just did their whole West Coast Los Angeles tour. It was amazing as always. Never gets old. Unfortunately, it was the only show that they didn't play one inner speaker track from.
Ah,
It was
right.
so sad, but obviously still a great show. So I want to know, because you've been through this process often at this point, is there something from start to finish, from the writing, recording, and sort of genesis of the record to clicking the publish button that you
Mm.
enjoy the most? What part of the journey stands out to you?
I think when you realize you have a song, I think is probably the best bit, perhaps. So like you'll have this idea and you're like, okay, like, is this any good or useful? And you'll sort of start to record it and you're like, oh, this is actually good. And you're kind of figuring out the chords that go under it. And you get the kind of feeling that you sort of trying to make it as you imagined it to be. And I think that process is quite early in the procedure, I would say, is
Yeah,
probably the most exciting part because the rest of it happens so slowly that you don't ever get this kind of rush of feeling typically. Like the biggest kind of rush I think comes when it's in its almost as soon as you get the idea is kind of the most exciting part, I think. And from then on, the kind of the more difficult part, I'd say, is making it sound like it was meant to be as you kind of imagined it originally. I'd say
right.
that's it. Probably it's like satisfying when it's done, obviously, and there's little
Sure, sure, sure.
disappointment along the way. But I think that initial part, when you realize you've got an idea that you are excited by, I think that's actually probably the most exciting bit in a way.
And I know this might be a difficult question to answer, especially because it's one person making the music, but when do you know when something is truly finished? Like, when do you throw in the towel and say, okay, I think it's actually done this time?
I think it can be hard to tell, but I think it's sometimes you can just sort of, if I come back to it multiple times, unprepared for it, let's say, and I listen to it and it sounds like I don't want to change something,
Mhm.
then I probably consider it to be done. And like, obviously there's other things
Sure.
like I have to be
Yeah,
happy
yeah,
with it.
yeah.
But like, yeah, like if I come, because sometimes you work on it for so long, like I said earlier, you kind of end up going down a bit with it. You kind of make it a bit worse, and you think something sounds
Sure.
harsh, and you change it, and you come back to it like 2 days later, and you're like, oh, that sounds like I've got some problems with it. So if you keep doing
Right.
that, and eventually, I'm not very efficient with this whole process. I could probably be a lot more streamlined if I had a few more hands into
Okay.
it. But I sort of seem to
There's no
find,
right or wrongs, though. Everyone has their own way of doing things, and
yeah,
especially because you don't have three or four other people in the band telling you their opinions, you can kind of do
yeah.
whatever you want as long as you like it. You're the one spending the time and putting the energy into it.
Of course, yeah. But I think, yeah, to answer your question, I think it is like if I come back to it over a few days separately, and each time I listen to it, it's satisfying or like
Sure.
not problematic. I think by then I'm like, this is done.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to preface this question by letting everyone know that I highly recommend they listen to the entire album from start to finish because
Mm-hmm.
it's fantastic. But for the uninitiated Colored Clocks listener, if you had to recommend one or two songs off the record for them to listen to kind of get a taste of what to expect, what
Mm-hmm.
would you recommend?
I think my favorite one is "What's a Man." Probably the one I'm probably the most happy with, I suppose, is that song at
Sure.
the moment. Um, and I also quite like All Friends. I don't know if they're necessarily indicative of the album as a whole, but All Friends is another one that I kind of,
Okay.
that one's got auto tune on the vocals as an effect, and I never done that before. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
kind of think it sounds cool, and
I
it
think it
sounds.
sounds cool too. What drove you to use that effect after all these years of not?
I generally like, I don't end up sort of spending much money on plugins or anything, and I just found this auto tune app and it was free. And I was like, oh, cool. And I downloaded it and I did a cover just for myself of Slave to Love
Okay.
by Roxy Music.
Hmm.
Was it Brian Ferry? I'm not sure if it's one or the other, but it's, that project. And I put auto tune on it and I was like, wow, that sounds so much better with the auto tune. And I just kind of like added some weird inflections and made the,
Sure, sure.
like rush through a whole bunch of notes and, as how auto tune works. But
Right.
I quite liked it. And I had that song, All Friends, and I hadn't put auto tune on it, and it was like it wasn't finished either. But then I whacked auto tune on it. And I was like, whoa, because I recorded it in a similar way. There's a
Sure,
similar
sure.
timbre of the instruments to my cover of Slave to Love that I still have somewhere.
Makes
And I was
sense.
like, oh yeah, okay, so I'm going to keep it like that, I think, and that's what I decided to do.
There you go. I think
Yeah,
autotune, when used properly and not, used too much, can really make a song better at points. And it sort of
yeah,
hides you from yourself a little bit. You know what I mean? You can
yeah,
do things, it's like this little added boost of confidence.
yeah. It does make it a little bit easier to listen to, I think, sometimes.
Yeah,
For myself at least. I think like there's
I
also
agree.
yeah,
I hate
also
my own voice. I'd never go back and watch interviews because I don't like hearing myself talk. And I
yeah,
don't think
yeah.
anyone likes hearing themselves talk, so it's a
I know
little,
that. Yeah, yeah,
right?
totally. I get used to that, but it takes some
Yeah.
time. But there's also like just to add something. There was a Paul McCartney song where he used auto tune. It was
Really?
released after Egypt Station. Yeah.
Oh, 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 yeah.
And yeah, that was I actually quite liked the way it was a similar effect, like that kind of like the
Yeah,
obvious sort of auto tune. But I think it kind of had a good effect on it, or at least with me, I kind of liked it.
nice. I mean,
Um,
yeah, for someone like him who's been making music for, 50 years, throw in
yeah,
some autotune, try some new things.
yeah. No, I thought it was good.
I agree. So, hypothetically speaking, what does the next year of your life look like? In a
That's
perfect world, mind you. In a perfect world of getting out and touring and no complications.
So at the moment, I live in Cologne,
Hmm.
and I'm a school teacher during the day.
Nice.
I think what I would like to do is like have a bit more time to make the next project. I'm working on some stuff now that I think is like it's exciting, I suppose, and I think it's going to be good. I've got lots of stuff that I've got on my computer and my phone that's like, let's say 50% done.
Sure.
So I'd like to go through that soon and really, and I will go through it pretty soon as well, but like that kind of sounding good. I think I'm quite happy with my progress in terms of like quality recently, at least. I think I've sort of progressed a bit, and I think I've got a few ideas that I'm sort of challenging myself in a way I hadn't before. So I think that stuff coming out and becoming as I want it to be, let's say musically, like sounding complete and finished, and then getting a bit of a tour together. I'm thinking of visiting London a bit if I can, because I'm pretty close to London and we can go there now. At least at the moment we can.
Right, right.
And like I met some people when I was there. I went there about 2 weeks ago, and I met some people there. And I was thinking of maybe trying to get some gigs happening there, and maybe getting some friends there musically, and try and get some networks happening there. So just sort of starting a bit more of a social connection with some of the songs, and like because like I haven't been able to do that so much recently, at least trying to get a bit more of a just to sort of spread it around a bit and get people involved with it and get to know other people and what they're doing and stuff. So yeah, like I'd also like to sort of send some songs through to other artists
There you
or
go.
labels or whatever and see if they enjoy them enough to use them. There's lots of things I'd like to do.
Sure.
But I guess for me at least, it all begins with like the song itself.
Right. Yeah,
That's
it's
the
a
way I
full-time
approach it,
job.
at least. Yeah.
It's a full-time job doing this thing.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, James, I got one more question for you at this point,
Mhm.
and it's how I like to close these up. Basically, what I want to know is for the person that is going to discover you from this, and for the person that is going to listen to your music for the first time, what
Mhm.
is an opening message that you'd like to say to them as they click the play button?
Um, I think I'd probably encourage them not to be too like to have too many thoughts. I think I kind of go, look, just open mind, just no sort of pre message, just like go for it, see what you think. I think, yeah, like I'd almost encourage a lack of thought. That sounds,
No,
I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean. Like I'd encourage
listen,
like an open canvas of just play.
I agree. I think if they have ears and they work, they will enjoy this record.
Hope
So
so. Hope so.
I
That's
think
the
that's how perfect ending to this. I'm
okay.
gonna let everyone know once again. The Floral Emblem is out. It's been out. Stream it. Follow along. Seriously, your entire catalog is fantastic, and there's more music on the way. It sounds like never ending, so I'm excited. But seriously, I do want to thank you so much that we could make this work. I could hear about this record, and I think everyone out there is really going to enjoy it.
Cool. Thanks, Austin. Thanks heaps. Yeah, it was a great interview. Well, I enjoyed it at least, and
Yeah, man. So did I. We'll
yeah.
definitely be talking soon. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Cool. Cheers.
All right. Bye bye.